Well, hello, my fellow book lovers. It is time to talk about my favorite reads of 2024. Now, I gotta let you guys know, I was very fortunate. My 2024 reading year was actually really good. I had very few duds in my reading. I had a few, and I do have a video already posted here on my channel of my least favorite reads of 2024, if you want to go check that out. But overall, it was a really good reading year for me. And so it was really difficult for me to be able to sit here and choose what my top favorites were. I ended up with 10. And there are a few different genres in here. They're not placed necessarily in order of like, this is my least favorite to my favorite. They're all my favorite in different ways. The first book I will be talking about is Fiend by Dr. F. Nothing is known about this author, which is what intrigued me to this duology. The first book of the duology is Psychopath, and I talk about that in my least favorite books of 2024. But Fiend is the prequel to Psychopath, and this is a very dark book where we are in the mind of a psychopath. And I definitely need you to read the trigger warnings if you decide to delve into this story. It is very graphic. It deals with SA. And this book is truly dark, but the story being told, it lends to it. It makes sense why it's there. Unlike with Psychopath, where I feel like it was written to be dark just for the sake of being dark, causing trauma for no reason. You're just wanting to put a book out there where you're talking about SA. Whereas this one, I feel like it made a lot of sense, and you're getting inside this guy's mind with his actions of doing this, but also his toxic relationships he has. And the twist at the end, I absolutely did not see coming. Again, this is a very, very dark book. I do not recommend this to people, especially if you are not somebody who generally reads dark books. And if you're just now delving into darker books, this probably isn't the place to start. Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas truly surprised me. The first time I actually read a Penelope Douglas book, it was Credence, which is a taboo sort of dark romance story. And when I picked up Punk 57, I assumed I was going to be reading the same type of content. But I don't feel like that book is that at all. It's a very, very touching story. It deals with a lot of things that I felt like I dealt with when I was in school. It's relatable, it's heartwarming, and I do believe that Penelope Douglas is a really great writer. I have also read Since Birthday Girl from her as well. And that one's a little taboo, not as taboo as Credence's, but I do feel like Punk 57 is my favorite book that I've read from her so far. If you are afraid to pick this up because you don't want to read taboo content, this doesn't have that. This is just a really touching, beautiful story, and I highly, highly recommend it. Exodus by Kate Stewart. I don't even know where to start with this book. It has emotionally damaged me for life. This was a very popular series that I heard about on Book Talk, and I decided to delve in, read the first book, Flock, and wasn't truly impressed, and I was like, I don't understand why people are loving this so much. Like, it was fine, but I'm not understanding. Exodus changed my mind. I was a mess for days after reading this book. This is part of a trilogy called the Ravenhood series, and there also is a prequel book to that series that I have not yet read. It's called One Last Rainy Day. I just don't know if I'm emotionally ready to read that. It seems like that's the book that really breaks people down who love this series, and I'm just not ready yet. This book is a fun time. It has a lot of mafia-esque things going on. There's a why choose romance going on at some points, and it deals with a lot of like family obligation, friend obligation, And I think that if you like kind of taboo stories, mafia stories, you really will enjoy this book. The next book I'll be talking about is The Wickedest of Things by Russell Berry. I was very fortunate to receive a digital copy of this story from the author, and I was intimidated when I first picked this up. I knew it was a thriller, but I was looking at the file size, and it was like 1,000 pages that I was going to have to read on my phone because I don't have like a Kindle or anything. And I read it in one day. I could not put this story down. I know as readers we say that to almost everything that we read, but this was truly giving me anxiety that, I mean, I had adrenaline just coursing through my veins the entire time. The villain in this story is really well done, and the character dynamics are really great. There's a machine, I won't mention much more, but there's a machine that happens, and there's labyrinths, and there's just so much going on. This reminded me a little bit of like The Maze Runner or doing an escape room. I was laughing, I was crying. There is a little bit of a romance in this story, but it's not the focal point of what's going on. This is an adrenaline rush. If you like action movies, I don't feel like this book could disappoint you. This is a book I definitely want to reread. I did end up buying the physical copy after reading the digital copy because it was so good. And I'm hoping that more people discover this book because I really do think it's unique. It's different than what's really popular right now, and it's worth the hype. Absolutely. This book, everybody in my family has killed someone. Just the title alone, you're like, excuse me? It is such a fun, interesting time. This is a thriller kind of mystery. It has dark humor. There's a twist at the end I did not see coming. I didn't know I was going to love this book as much as I did. I don't even remember how it got onto my TBR. And I remember just looking at it one day and I was like, okay, what is this about? My favorite thing about this book is that the narrator at points will break the fourth wall. I really enjoy that. I love when there's something different within a writing style that just breaks away from the norm, especially with how much I read. It's just nice to see a different style being used. And the dark humor I think I needed after the year I had. 2024 was very unkind to me, and this whole book, it kind of gave me The Shining vibes by Stephen King, but in a humorous way. And I actually had just read Stephen King's The Shining, I think like a couple of months before this book. It was just a really, really good time, and I highly recommend if you like a thriller with dark humor. This book is another book that I discovered here on YouTube, and that is Listen by Marissa Beck. This book is a look into a woman going through depression, and it's done so well. I do understand that everybody who deals with depression, it happens differently for everybody, but when you look at it with a wide scope, I feel like this does it justice. If you're somebody who has never experienced depression in your life and you really don't understand it, I think this would be a great book to delve into. I think you'd be able to at least get a concept of what people go through. Something that was a personal touch that I really loved was that every chapter was a song from her playlist. And that really added a nice touch because I do use music for everything. It is a huge part of who I am. And I actually ended up creating a playlist for this book on my Spotify. It is just a story about a woman trying to deal with her brain. And it's done so well, and it's heartbreaking, and I really hope that this book picks up traction as well because it was so well done, and I will forever think about this story. I feel like this next book will get me judged, but that's okay. I like what I like. And this book blew up on TikTok this year, and I'm pretty sure this book is what started the masked men trend on TikTok. The book I'm talking about is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. I don't even know how to describe this book. It is a dark romance, but the banter in this book is hilarious, and you believe the chemistry that's happening even through these dark things. And I did give in to the popular request to listen to this in audiobook form. I definitely recommend that if you have not yet experienced the story. Personally, I'm not a fan of the female narrator, but the male narrator, this book is a fun time if you like dark romance. I don't know how you could be disappointed with this. And at the end, it became kind of thrilling. It had a little bit of everything. It had a little bit of laughs. It had the thrilling part. It had the dirty smut. It was really a great time, and this will be a book I definitely will reread. 1984 by George Orwell has become one of my favorite books of all time. I have heard about this book for most of my life. And when I first joined the BookTube community years ago, a lot of people talked about how this book was the granddaddy of dystopians. This book is fantastic. I try really hard to add in classics to my TBR just to keep my reading experiences diverse, and classics scare me. This one is written like a modern day story. It's scary how relatable this book is, and it's important. And I truly recommend this to every type of reader. I don't see how you can walk away from this book not loving it, especially if you're somebody who loves dystopian stories. This is truly an amazing book that I will never forget. It will be reread. It will be recommended all of the time. And like I said, it's written in such a modern way that if classics scare you, this is a great book to start with. Oh, Frederick Bachman, how you have invaded my soul, my very being with your writing. Btown by Frederick Bachman really was a surprise to me in a way, but I had read A Man Called Ove by him the year before, and that story was amazing. We're just reading about an old man who's a curmudgeon who lost his wife and how he's dealing with that. But it made such an impact. And I watched the movie. It is so beautiful. Because of that story, I decided I wanted to read his other books, and I believe Btown was trending at the time, so I started there. This is a trilogy. I've only read the first book so far, but I do plan on getting to the other books this year. This is like a Mighty Ducks for adults, but we're dealing with the aspects of family relationships, team relationships, friend relationships, right and wrong. There's this town that's trying to get back on the map and their team has to win, but that's the subplot of everything else going on. Frederick just knows how to write real characters. These feel like real people, and the stories never leave you. I'm really sad that the series I can't watch. There was a series on HBO, but I believe it was made in a different country, so it's not available to us, and it makes me just depressed. I want to watch it. I hope that it gets released here or that they make an American version, because I definitely think it deserves it. If you like anything by Frederick Bachman, I do not think that this will disappoint you. We have made it to the final book, my favorite book not only of 2024 but of all time, and that is, drumroll please, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I cannot, there are no words to describe how much I love this story. I picked up this book specifically because I knew it was loosely based on Fleetwood Mac, and that was one of my mother's favorite bands. So I figured there was no way I was going to dislike this book, but I had no idea how it would become my personality. One of the coolest things about this book is that it is written in interview form. So you're basically just reading dialogue the entire time. And also you're getting different points of view of the same event. You do not have to be a fan of Fleetwood Mac or 70s music to appreciate what's going on here. This truly is just a human story, looking at the dynamics of relationships in all its forms. It is fantastic. The idea, the writing style was so unique to me, and I feel like everybody will relate to something within this story. And at the end, there's a little bit of a twist where once you find that out, everything really clicks into place. Because at times you don't really know who to root for. It is such a beautiful story. I don't want to categorize it necessarily as a romance. It is, but it's so much more than that. And it's so believable. I love it so much, and I just want everybody to go rush out right now. Put down your other book and go read this one. There is a series on Prime that I have watched 5 times at this point. I bought the vinyl record for Daisy Jones and the Six. That was the music from the series. I have a Daisy Jones and the Six t-shirt that I wear. I will forever come back to this book. I don't know if any book will ever beat what I felt and feel after reading this book, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching this whole video. In the comments down below, I would love to know what your favorite reads of 2024 were. Please give this video a like, subscribe, and I will be back in my next video.